let's get started. So I want you to think about, and you can put it in the chat if you want, and I want you to think about why writing is important to you. Why is it important for you to be able to write? And go ahead and just type something in the chat there if you'd like. So I've got self-expression, personal expression, communication. We've got, oh, and perfect. You can use your annotation tool if you'd like as well. Load off my full mind in words. I hear ya. Organization. All right. I think you got most of them. Let's see. So the reasons that we write to share an idea or information. We write to tell someone how we feel, whether it's a card or a note or a letter. I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up. You know, maybe you have someone special that you're going to be sending a card to. You know, my mom lives in Arizona and I haven't been able to see her for the pandemic. So sending her a little card, how I feel, means a lot to her. So that's an important reason why we write. That might be short expressions. To remember something. I know, especially during COVID, if I don't write it down or put it in my notes, it's gone. So to show what you know. If you're a student, that's really important. Any classes you're taking, you're writing to show what you know. You know, if you're, even if like you're writing an IEP or you're collecting data for the teacher or writing notes, I mean, you're writing to show what you know about that student. And those are all important things to process information. Leisure, some people love to write for leisure. You know, that's a, you know, wonderful form of art, whether it's journaling or you are working on your first novel or those kind of things. Mindfulness, you know, just to kind of unload that stress for the day and just kind of put it on the paper and let it go. Poetry. And then what about like music and songs? I mean, that's an area where, you know, so writing is really not only like an essential, you know, way to communicate, but it's really an art form. And, you know, as educators, you know, we need to make sure that all of our children have the ability to do all of these things. It may not look like how you and I do it, but we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to be able to do this. So we're going to talk about how you do that today. And let me clear the annotations here. All right, so why teach literacy? Because I kind of put reading and writing together as literacy. It enhances cognitive development. It facilitates a fuller participation at school. It increases employment opportunities. Students who can read and write get better paying jobs. It supports the use of mainstream technologies like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. You know, those for many young adults and students with disabilities has become, you know, really a lifesaver socially during this pandemic when they're stuck at home. So, you know, it fosters those social relationships. It fosters self-expression, and again, provides a meaningful and enjoyable leisure pursuit. Now, for our students with complex communication needs and complex bodies, learning to write and read provides a way for them to communicate more effectively. They can tell you what's wrong. They can tell you exactly what they need. It has a profound impact on their self-esteem, and it also has a positive impact on the perceptions and attitudes of others, because they get to see, hey, this student really, you know, does more than come and visit class. They actually work in class. So, and again, during the pandemic, I think we all have found that literacy is an incredibly important way that we connect socially with each other. Imagine, had this been, the influenza pandemic of 1918, and none of us could communicate. We'd just be stuck in our homes. We wouldn't necessarily know what was happening in the world. So, we've been able to stay connected with our family and friends and students because of, social media and our literacy skills. So Karen Erickson and David Yonder and David Koppenhaver have done a lot of research in the area of literacy, and recently have published a book in 2020 about teaching comprehensive literacy to all students. So they're the gurus of really looking at how to teach kids with complex needs, how to read and write. And so this is 3 slides long, but we'll just kind of go through it. The Literacy Bill of Rights. And so this is every child has the opportunity to learn to read and write. They have the right to accessible, clear, meaningful, culturally and linguistically appropriate texts. They have the right to interact with others while reading, writing, or listening to a text. And that means interacting means they can ask questions and comment and discuss, all about the related text. They have the right to life choices through reading and writing competencies. So, it could be, again, employment, independence, community participation. I know I have several adult friends who have complex bodies and complex communication needs who are literate. And, one of them is making videos for Apple. Several of them take classes at the university level, and with all the Zoom and everything, that people don't even realize that they have a disability. The other thing that's really important is self-advocacy, being able to advocate for yourself, whether it's with the doctor or something is happening to you that you're not comfortable with, that you have a way to be able to tell people that. And then the right to lifelong educational opportunities, incorporating literacy instruction. And these educational opportunities, they have power for that individual that cannot be taken away. So they have the right to teachers and other service providers, so that's all of us, who are knowledgeable about literacy methods and principles. So I'm hoping after today you have I know you have some techniques up your sleeve that are fantastic, and I'm hoping I give you a couple more things to put in your toolbox. Last two, they have a right to live and learn in environments that provide a varied models of print use. All sorts of things, demonstrating, purposeful print, such as reading a recipe, paying bills, sharing a joke, writing a letter, all those things that when we're raising our kids, we're showing and modeling for them. The right to live and learn in environments that maintain the expectation and attitude that all individuals are literacy learners, and all means all. So this is a fact that kind of is astounding to me always, that kindergartners who are typically developing and are from middle-class homes are exposed to literacy from infancy, enter formal schooling with more than 1,000 hours of early literacy experiences. That's 30 minutes a day.
Heidi, we're going to do a quick interpreter switch and
Sure.
Modify the spotlight settings.
Sure. Let me know when you're ready. Are you ready, Lorna?
Yes.
Okay,
now.
ready to go. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. So if you think about this is, again, a half hour a day. So think of how many kids come to kindergarten and don't have this. so many of our kids, we're needing to give those early literacy experiences. So usually if you hear me talk about anything ever, you're going to hear me talk about presume competence. And so basically what that means is that we acknowledge that all individuals have the ability to learn, to communicate, to participate in their own way. And it means that we provide opportunities by creating accessible and inclusive spaces. So the big word here is that, I always say until we have shown a child what they know, we have to presume they understand like grade level content. If we haven't given them a way to show us what they know, so you want to presume competence, and that respects the value of human diversity, and not presuming competence could actually do harm because you won't give them those opportunities. And my biggest pet peeve, I'll get on my soapbox for a minute, is, when I'm working with a team, and this happens kind of all over the place. And I've been part of that team before I knew better. And they refer to a student as low. Oh, he's so low. He's like the lowest in my class. And, it's like, how do you know? If you haven't given them a tool, if they're a complex learner, if you haven't given them a tool to show what they know that's accessible to them, how do you know they're low? So think about that. And I really, I would much rather hear complex learning needs, or I'm having trouble figuring out how to teach reading or writing, but no child is low. And frequently it gets said over the child. And, that can do, long-term harm to their self-confidence and self-esteem. So I have it spelled right this time. We're going to talk about form and function in writing. So form is what writing looks like. It's how it's created. It follows function in language development. So think about that for a little bit. And this is where we start. Those kindergartners come in, we're teaching them how to write their letters, so we come focusing on the form of writing, which is very important. I'm an OT, so I'm going to be the first to say that form is very important. However, the piece that we miss is function. Function is the purpose of writing, all those why we write. And it is a developmental progression that begins with scribbling. So think about our children with complex needs. Think about our children coming from like low socioeconomic homes who haven't had those opportunities to scribble. They're not ready for the form because they don't understand the function of writing. So we really need to, while we're working on the form, change that function, change the focus into function of writing, why we write. And then you want to choose a pencil that allows brain power for function. And so today we're going to be talking about a tool developed out of the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and it's called an alternative pencil. It is a letter strip, and you're the pencil, you write. So we're going to be talking about that, and really looking at, again, the function of writing. Let me move this up here. Okay, so writing is not copying and tracing. It's not. How often do we start them in with copying and tracing and think that they're going to learn how to write? They're not going to learn how to write. There's no evidence that shows that that improves their writing. So it is a fine motor task. And if you're working on fine motor skills, and you're working and kind of staying in the lines and that fine motor precision, fine. but it is not going to facilitate writing. It is not going to improve their ability to recognize letters. It's not going to improve their ability to form letters. And it is not going to teach them how to be a writer. So copying and tracing, they don't teach that print has meaning. They don't teach why we write, what it means to be a writer, how to think like a writer. So think about that student that you've worked with who has come into kindergarten, and we have focused on the form of writing, and it is so hard for them and they hate writing. Or you have an IEP goal for a middle school student with complex needs, that, they're going to hold an egg-shaped crayon and write their name or write a letter. That's not, that's not teaching them the function of writing. And that's not really going to probably be a long-term way that they write. So again, another quote from Jane Farrell, who is an amazing educator. And I'm going to just go ahead and read it because I think you need to hear it. In the history of special education, we have tried to bypass emergent writing because we haven't understood how important it is, or because we have mistakenly thought that because a student is school age, that we should be making their writing look appropriate. We had students copying who didn't believe they were writers and who never had an opportunity to scribble. We didn't teach them about the functions of print. We just taught them to copy. We never taught them that print was a code for speech. We didn't teach them those basic functions of print that allow individuals to develop into writers. All right, and someone asked me to define complex bodies. So I'm going to do that quickly here. So basically, those are your students who, struggle, some of your, I kind of refer to it as those kids who just really have a hard time moving their body. Some of them are in wheelchairs, some of them are not. It could be a variety of things. They could be some of our kids with CP, muscular dystrophy. They just have this body that doesn't consistently do what they want it to do. And then the question again, another question was the background of the authors of the literacy book are, they're educators. So they're all special ed teachers. So, okay, so we're going to look at the developmental stages of writing. Now, I have a bin that I keep of things that my children have done. And in my daughter's bin, there are notebooks full of pages of scribbles. She's 19 now, so she doesn't scribble anymore. But we would go on a trip and she'd have a notebook and she'd be in the car and she'd be filling that page with scribbles. And then she'd tell us these amazing stories. And it's really been kind of fun to kind of look through those and actually see her go through these developmental stages of scribbling. So it starts off at like pre-literate, where you have some scribbles and you might see some shapes and faces and bodies, and then it goes to where you see some emergent literacy, where you're getting some letters and they might be repeated in order. They might, be lowercase, uppercase, backwards, mixed with, pictures. And then it starts to be like where it represents the words. So like you can see the one where there's a picture of a cat and there's a C and a T. So they've got like that first and end sound. And then you start seeing more of the fluent writing. And that's what all of our children go through. So if you think of our students who, have complex bodies, they never get to go through these stages, or our students who are coming, from, different backgrounds may not have had these opportunities to scribble with writing. I remember one day I had a little guy sitting on the computer who's a kindergartner, and he typed me this page of random letters. And when he was done, I'm like, wow, you had a lot to say. Do you want to sit in my author's chair and tell me about it? And he had this amazing story about pirates and adventures and, just these fantastic details. And I was like, that is a great story. I'm going to hang it on my bulletin board here in my room. And when we finished, do you think that he thought he was a writer? He did, so that's that. And I don't, Patricia asked if I could increase the size of the pages I'm sharing. I am not able to do that. So they get better. That's the only one that's kind of hard to see. There might be one more. So writing development happens because of literacy experiences, adults attributing meaning to writing, emergent writing opportunities, so getting those opportunities to scribble. And it takes about 3.5 years for typically developing children to develop from emergent to conventional writers. And it may take long, it probably is going to take longer for our students with disabilities. So so conditions of literacy and learning. So just like for all our kids, we want to have high expectations. Approximations and errors are accepted and celebrated. When someone is learning the function of writing, you're not like, oh, fix that A for me. You didn't make that A right. You're just like, oh, you're just accepting that. Meaning is attributed to all attempts. And you want to model them. You want to show them, like when you're writing, what it looks like. Oh, I need to write a list. I'm going to write my list so I remember what to do tonight, or I'm going to stop at the grocery store on the way home and, I'm going to jot my list down here so that they see you writing. And they benefit from all the same literacy experiences and instructional approaches used with typical children. So I'm going to share this with you. It might be a little hard to see. So several years ago, I walked into my boss's office and this was hanging on her wall. And I was like, oh my goodness, can I have a picture of that? And this is her 4-year-old daughter. And what do you notice that she's done there? She has a drawing in the bottom. So the drawing, obviously from the drawing, you can tell that this story is about mom and dad and her brother. They're outside because there's a big flower. And she's got like her name and her brother's name. And then she's got letters repeated, which is how emergent writers begin writing is, it's like they might write one letter, a whole page of one letter. So you can see her letters are repeated out of order, but she's got some repeated letters. And then, I love that part of writing today is emojis. And she found the emoji keyboard and she's got a whole series of emojis to her story. And her mom was like, that is a great story. I'm going to hang it up in my office. So this is typically developing 4-year-old, what their writing looks like. So kind of fun to see that. So these are examples of some special ed students who are excited about the function of writing. So the one on the left, we're using Clicker Docs, and the student, they would write the alphabet together so they could, the OT and him would write the alphabet together so that they could find all the letters. And then he would have some free writing. And so you can see he's got G, D, G, J, K. He's got some, letters out of order. He's starting to kind of play with the letters. Then he's got his name. He knows how to spell his name. And then he's, going on and he's getting, a CVW and that meant car. The OT put that in there. That was car. So you can see he's kind of playing, but she attributed meaning to everything that he did. And he was like super excited about writing. The next one you see, again, letters repeated out of order. And when the OT asked him, so read your sentence to me, he said, they are sailing to the beach. And so she put that on there for him. You know, and of course, if you're going to write on the student's paper, you want to ask permission, you know, so it's like, is it okay if I put your sentence on there so that everybody knows what it says? And, you know, and yes or no, I don't want you to write on my paper, and respect that. You know, maybe you write it on another paper and give it to them because it's their work. They're proud of that work. So, you know, the next one, you know, you can see catch the fish is what he was saying. And then the chalkboard here is just that, you know, early developmental emergent literacy scribbling. So you can see the different, like the progression in the stages of writing development that happen. Oops, sorry about that. Well, let's go back one. Okay, did I just go past? Yep. So errorless writing, let's talk about that a little bit. So what errorless writing is where you have a blank and they have a choice of words to put in there, and no matter what they put in, it's going to be right. And there are times when, you know, you're wanting to publish something, you know, that there are times when that is definitely an appropriate tool to use with students, but it's not something you want to use all the time. So what happens when we just do errorless writing is they know I just have to pick one and I'm done. But it prevents that curiosity, that natural kind of desire to kind of wonder and experiment and, you know, discover things. It prevents learning, and it does not teach the learning target. It just produces a product that looks like others. So if the learning target is they will, you know, produce a meaningful sentence or generate their own sentence, and you're having them, you know, put a picture or a word or fill in one word out of a choice of a word bank, you know, it hasn't met their target. It gives them no opportunity to figure out how to do something that they don't know how to do. And it gets in the way of long-term progress. So definitely there's a time and a place for the errorless writing, but definitely make sure you include some authentic writing happening as well. So what is the alternative pencil? The alternative pencil was developed by Gretchen Hanser at the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And it is defined as anything that provides a student with access to all 26 letters of the alphabet. So they have some that they have a variety that we'll go through that they have developed, but you can be creative with, I mean, you don't have like one of my laminated alternative pencils with you, you know, you can jot down the alphabet on a piece of paper. So it doesn't have to be, it is not fancy and high tech, it is low tech assistive tech. So who are they for? They were created for students who were unable to hold a traditional pencil or physically manipulate a standard keyboard. Alternative pencils can be used with writers of varying abilities and ages, including students who are emerging writers and those who are able to write more conventionally. So a variety of kids can use them. Marie has a comment here, what we need to know to help left-hand students succeed. The left-handers should go through the same developmental stages of writing that everybody else is. And if they're really struggling, they may not have had enough time, you know, scribbling and just kind of playing with writing. They do hold their pencil slightly differently. Their paper is usually turned at a slight different angle to a right-handed writer, but they should go through the same stages of writing. So it shouldn't be any different. Okay, so how to use a alternative pencil. So you want to teach a yes, no response. And if you can only get one, go for yes. And the whole team needs to be on board with what your yes, no is that you're teaching. So kind of a big aha moment for me, I used to work in brain trauma rehab before I came to the school 17, 18 years ago now. And when someone was coming out of a coma, the first thing I would teach them is their yes, no. And if they didn't, and when I came to the schools, it was like we were waiting for them to show us what their yes, no is. And it's like, no, you got to teach them. So you want to go for yes and no, if possible, as close to a conventional yes, no as possible. So for a student who has very limited movement, it might be eyes right and left, or eyes to the left for no and eyes up for yes. But you want to teach that, and you want to be like, oh, I saw your eyes go to the left. That's a no. I'm going to take that as a no. I saw your eyes go up. I'm going to take that as a yes. And don't quiz them. Was that yes? Was that no? Just kind of presume competence and presume that's what they meant and go with it. At the end of the the Google slide deck, there is a resource of different ways to teach yes, no. A smile should not be yes, because if you feel like vomiting or you need to have your adult brief changed, or if you're younger, your diaper changed, smiling for your yes is not probably something you want to do. So go for some kind of movement and make sure the whole team is going for that movement. You can find a topic of interest to the students. They can choose between 2 or more pictures. A great thing to do is put together either a Google slide deck of favorite things, or have the family send in pictures of them and their pets, and then they can choose who or what they want to write about. The students.
And
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Hetty. We're going to do a quick interpreter switch.
Perfect.
Yep.
I saw you come up there. So.
All right, we're ready to go. Thank you.
Okay. So with emergent writers, the partner is going to go through the letter. So I'm going to be here and I'm going to be like, do you want an A? And I'm going to wait. Sometimes 10 seconds, sometimes longer than that for a response. And what a mistake that I've made a lot over the years, and I see a lot of people making, is you're like, do you want an A? Do you want an A? Do you want an A? And for these kids with complex bodies, they have to generate this whole motor response to give you their yes. And if you interrupt that, they have to start over. I had one little guy that he took 50 seconds to respond. I stood there and counted one day. So that's a long time. He's down to just a few now. But we were working on getting his head up to drive a power wheelchair, and he'd start moving. And then whoever was my helper would be like, yes, that's how it goes. And boom, down that head would drop, and he'd have to start all over. And giving that wait time and being silent is really hard. I mean, if you count to 10 seconds, that is a long, long time. So you want an A? Yes, I'm going to write an A down. You want a B? Yes, I'm going to write a B. But when you do it, you always, especially if they're emergent writers, you go back to A. So if they give you a yes for an A, you're going to go back to A again, because developmentally, we saw in some of the samples, they repeat letters. Once they get more fluent, you can be like, is it on this page? Nope. Is it on this? Oops, sorry, I skipped a page. Is it on this page? Yes. And then you start going through the letters on that page. And then there's a thing where they can look and tell you they're finished, or turn the page, or add a space, so you can, get more to the conventions of writing. Okay. And if you have a student that's using an AAC device, so I know in our district, we use Proloquo as a communication tool for a lot of our students. There's an alphabet in there. So you can just flip to that alphabet page and use that as your alternative pencil. Oh, goodness. I think I clicked on that. So here's the link for how to teach the yes, no head movements. There is a variety of things you'll find here. And you can just click and you'll get some ideas. You know, and anything like any songs like, you know, hello, goodbye. I think I spelled Streisand wrong. Anyway, so any of those things, you know, work as yes, no head movements. And that are kind of fun because you want to make it fun and crazy. You don't want to be like, we're going to go yes, 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 and no, 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 because they're not going to want to do that. So if you spend like 5 minutes each day working on some fun activity to teach yes, no head movements, excuse me, that's a great way to do that. You want to model it with extreme head movements. You can use voice output switches to give feedback. So you might have some tiny little button switches. I don't have any here with me. And on one of them, you could record yes, and in one you could record no. And you could have your yes one up here and your no one over here. And you could be like, if there anything moves up, you hit the switch and it says yes. And they move anything to the side, you hit. So they don't have to hit the switch. You're operating the switches, but they're just getting that auditory feedback that they moved in the right direction. So these are some different ways, and you want to verbally, like I talked about earlier, reinforce. I saw you move your head to the side. I'm going to take that as a no. And if they meant yes, you're going to get a, you're going to get a different reaction. And there, and so many of these kids, it is really, really subtle. So the alternative pencil, there is no exclusion criteria. No student is too delayed, impaired, or poorly behaved. They learn to write by writing regardless of their perceived ability or skill. They don't need to be a proficient speller or have consonant letter sound correspondence. And again, think about that scribbling. So I love this quote from Erin Sheldon, who is a mother of a student with complex learning needs. And she says, if we don't assume that every child in an inclusive classroom is potentially literate and that it is our job to teach them literacy, then what we actually communicate to all the kids in the class is that this is a friend who visits, and all the work the rest of us are doing, all the rest of us are doing the work of learning. So that was when I heard her say that, it was just so powerful for me. And again, you know, I have the right to write even if I can't hold a pencil. And giving students the knowledge of the entire alphabet gives them power. So let's say their leg hurts or their foot hurts. You know, if they can get, if they can say something's wrong and you get a yes and you go through your pencil trying to figure out what it is. And if you get to F, you're going to know it's a finger or a foot. You know, so they're able to kind of help you figure out what's wrong with them. So they have the power to say whatever they want to say. They may not get the whole word, but if they can get the first couple of sounds, usually you can help figure out what they want. So presuming competence does not mean that we pretend there is no disability. It means that we can still teach you regardless of the disability. So these are some examples of the alternative pencil. So here's what it looks like. This is a flip chart, and we talked about how that is used. I've got a video here. This is an elementary student that I've worked with. This is the teacher who uses all sorts of visuals to support writing. I have to preface it with she'd already done the activity once. And the para was like, that's awesome, we need to get that on video. So you're not getting the clean yes and no's that she gave the first time. And again, you'll see the teacher, when she gives her that kind of look up, just saying yes, and I mean, going with yes and not testing her to see if that was really yes. So this is what it looks like in action. Oh, hold on. Let me share my computer sound. Sorry about that. move this. Hold on. I'm not sure quite what I'm doing here. There we go. Sorry about that. I have two screens here, and so sometimes they the controls get like
baseball
hidden.
fun, the park, sports, or school? I like the way you're looking at all of them. Which one do you think you'd like to write about? Show me.
So look at the wait time she's giving her.
Park, sports, school, or baseball?
So she's helping her because this
Sports,
is what she picked
All
before.
right.
So you
We
wouldn't
can keep this
necessarily
one
do
here because
that.
sports is a baseball is about sports too. All right. Ale, if you look at these words and these pictures, would you like an A?
You saw the head go
B.
up to the side, so that was no.
A B? Okay. B is in baseball. Look. B is in baseball.
You can see how she had all sorts of ways to kind of keep her interested and engaged. In
All
what's
right, would you like to
happening.
choose another word? Would you like an A? A B? A C? A D? Next page. Would you like would you like this one? Player? All right. Let's get that word on there. Player's got a P, an L, an A. There's our A, Y, E, R. We'll draw a little guy there. Here's our player, and here's our, we've got baseball and player. Should we look for another word? All right. Would you like an A? No. A B? No. A C? A D? An E? E? Okay. We'll get an E. I see that there's an E in our baseball and an E in player. Would you like an F?
Let me get my chat brought up here again. All right, so this is a different example of alphabet frame that's on it's an eye gaze frame. So we teach the colors, and so if you look up at this color, if they look at this color, they're going to be like, okay, the letter is yellow. And then you can be like, okay, the letter's yellow. And then you look down here at the red, the letter is going to be V, if that makes any sense. So you have the same pictures on both sides, so you can be opposite of them and looking and seeing where their eyes go. This is not a fast process. It is very, very slow, but it lets them kind of generate some of their own letters, some of their own writing. They have them in Braille. They have an alphabet flip chart with sign language. So there's a variety of ways. I appreciate the sign language one because then it gives me the sign because I am not as proficient with all of those. Operates the same way. Again, we talked about how it can be, really anything. A little bit about kind of what that looks like. We are approaching our time, and I just want to end this quote from Karen Owens, who has a YouTube channel called We Speak Pod, and also has a Facebook page. And she's has 4 children with complex bodies and complex communication needs. And she's never let us mix up performance with intelligence. Some of the most brilliant kids have yet to be set free simply because the adults in their world have yet to learn how to best serve them and pull out the potential. Let's not get stuck in the performance trap. Our job is to believe in every child. Every child needs and deserves a champion. So you guys are the ones who are with them every day, and you're the true champions. And so I'm hoping that you got some tools today. Another thing for those of you in resource room kiddos and kids without complex bodies is I've used these with my really reluctant writers just to kind of like take the stress off of writing for a little while, and that seems to help as well.